Welcome back to Vox Terra. Today, we are talking about the intersectionality of conservative and leftist identities. Now, wow, I bet you never heard anything like that before, and I did a quick Google search to see if anything like that was out there, and I didn't quite find anything. So what I think it's seriously important to explore right now are these intersections between a more traditional and a more leftist identity. We can view these identities as counterweights rather than atomized as counterweights, and a response to what many of us are perceiving as an increasingly lonely, alienated, what we could call a divorce culture, and a counterweight to rampant consumerism. And I put forward that demonizing each of these identities serves a similar function, whether intentionally or unintentionally. Well, let's define these variables, conservative and left. And first, in this case, I'm not looking at maybe all of the definition of that, but rather in the conservative case, I'm looking at maybe what we could call a Confucianistic thinking, an idea embodying the concept that people have obligations to one another, and those are based on family ties or some sort of a traditional order. We could see it embodied too within the Catholic Church or the Catholic philosophy, Islam or evangelicals. Now, within the leftist tradition, we'd look at maybe people who identify as Marxist, communist, socialist. Now, and those have been very demonized within our media culture. But what's not explored within those identities is that too has a sense of mutual obligation being forgotten about, and people left on their own devices in this increasingly alienating social structure. A slogan from the Marxist days was, "From each according to his ability, to each according to his need." A very similar line we'll find in the Gospels. And each of these offers the German professor comes out, an alternative to the identities being served to us within our commercially driven media. And attacking and demonizing each of these. Now, notice I'm not saying criticizing. It's okay to have criticism, but you want to separate disinformation from information when you're making these attacks. Demonizing them removes and tears down another wall between the individual, their sense of self, and what they're being fed in the media. A media at every level dominated by commercial interest, as is our society, as is our politics. And the overriding interest is getting you to buy stuff, consume stuff, whether you need this stuff or you don't, making that a part of your self-image, your identity. And that is resulting in this runaway greenhouse effect, pumping our earth full of greenhouse gases, carcinogens, endocrine disruptors, neurotoxins, all related to the plastics, petrochemical industries, and just the overuse of stuff. Well, you could even make a case that the disintegration of a sense of self separate from the commercial sphere, that is the attack on traditional values, sense of obligation, actually goes to the American Revolution, or at least is baked into it. Think about the Declaration of Independence, the right to pursue happiness, not obligation to one another, the right to pursue happiness. And isn't that a lot of what this culture of alienation is justified on? I'm pursuing my own interest. So now we live in this media environment where not only is the Red Scare of the 1950s, where everyone calling themselves communist or associated with it are vilified, but there's a simultaneous attack and a mocking of traditional values, traditional ways, the church, the old-fashioned thing, stodgy, uptight. Well, that's been going on for a while. Now, obviously, many of my conservative friends are going to disagree with me saying there's merit in the socialist view or the communist view, but many of my leftist friends, those who are actually understanding of the left, are going to be dismissive of my saying there's merit in these traditional views, these traditional ways. Marx is often quoted as saying religion's the opiate of the masses. And indeed, well, if we look historically, we can see evidence for that. The divine right of kings, he's there by God's will. And then we see since then, that pattern seems to play out. But look, Think about it this way. Was it actually that? Is that actually the way it happened? Or was the church offering a counterweight to a check, if you will, on the unchecked power of men with arms, men with weapons, organized into fighting bands? That's another way of looking at it. So as we go down this merry path, as my grandmother would have put it sarcastically, or she used the term merry path sarcastically, as we tread down this path of both tearing down the traditional values, the traditional ways, or mocking them, dismissing them, and we go down this merry path of bringing back another Red Scare, demonizing those who call themselves socialists or communists again. It brings me back to a conversation I had in the 90s with an international student from China. She reminisced on her childhood when China felt communist. The people had a sense of togetherness. Yes, they didn't have a lot of stuff, but the idea was they were all in it together. They were chipping in together, building this new future where no one's left out and everyone's included and there's no master and servant. But a part of building that future was an attack on their traditional ways, the Confucianistic ways, the Buddhist temples. So then, as communism, the communist ideal, started to give way to a new opening to capitalism, which we in the US of A pushed for, by the way, many in China, herself included, felt like now they had no identity other than just what's being put out to them by the consumeristic capitalist culture. So I'm putting forth to you this more unifying idea that about getting past culture war, that think of the attacks on either group as a means of serving this continuation of us having no identity other than the one being fed to us by a commercial culture, which serves then the fueling of more consumption, more waste, more disposableness, and more war. And as our planet heats by a process set in motion by the excessive burning of fossil fuels, and as the climate destabilizes, people will become increasingly more stressed, more fearful, and they're going to want answers. And I myself am concerned about a future where the individual is not grounded in some sense of either religion or a socialist belief system, some sense of mutual obligation, that we are all in it together. Well, hey, I hope you found this interesting food for thought, and if you did, please make sure you are subscribed to my channel. You clicked that darn notification bell. You're liking, you're commenting. Thank you to my 2 patrons at Patreon. This show comes at a big opportunity cost for me. And as always, until next time, peace be with you.